like me, your New Year's resolutions have gone out the window. It's now the 16th of January as I record this. You gave it a go, I'm sure. I think actually we're fine. I think I'm fine. If I may be so bold. And I think you're fine, just as you are. This video is actually a riff off of Leena Norm's video called The Death of Personal Goals. I'll put a link in the description. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with this. I have curated a list of books for me to read this year that will help me, that I hope will help me think more about how to make the world a better place for all of us, being engaged in community rather than focusing on individual self-improvement, connecting to others, working to make the world better for everyone and not just like my little patch. So this is a New Year's TBR to help along that route. Let's see what I've come up with. I'm gonna ease us in gently here, and I think going out for walks in nature is probably a good start for easing gently into a more political TBR. And this is something that I've seen recommended by Leena Norm. So this is a great book to start with, and that's Losing Eden by Lucy Jones. This book talks about how we are losing access to nature and why it's so important for us to be able to access nature, how nature affects our personal well-being. And I'm hoping it's going to touch on ways that we can fight for our access as well. I know that she's going to touch on some places where we're trying to save nature, like the global seed vault in Svalbard. So yeah, I think that would be a nice one to ease us into this list. The next one on my list is How to Go and Stay Vegan by Ed Winters. If you've been following me, you'll know that I have been struggling to be vegan. So I was doing much better when I lived back in the UK. I've been living in Japan for a year and 3 months at this point. And when I got to Japan, I found it really difficult. I think I struggled because I don't cook. So there's not a lot of like ready-made vegan options like in convenience stores here and things like that. So it's not as accessible as it was to me back in the UK. And so I've struggled to keep my progress with how vegan that I was being. But I think like that is expected, and the key thing is for me is to not give up just because I have struggled. Going vegan for me is as important as it ever was. All the reasons to go vegan I still believe in terms of avoiding animal cruelty, how much better a vegan diet is for the planet, not contributing to antibiotic resistance. I think there's so many good reasons, but for me the top one is just how cool it is to the animals. And if we were seeing that what happens to the animals, you know, at the park in front of us, you could go to prison for animal cruelty. If the things that we do to animals in factory farming, if we were doing it to our pets, we could go to prison. It's just as important as I've ever felt, even though I'm eating animal products. So I haven't given up on the idea, on like the vegan vision, even though it's not something that I'm practicing. So I really appreciate that Ed Winters, who's known on YouTube as Earthling Ed, has brought out this book that acknowledges, even in the title, how to go and stay vegan, right? Just coming to this realization isn't going to be enough, and that it is difficult to stay vegan. So I'm really intrigued to read that and to feel supported in continuing to be more vegan. And I'm not sure if being 100% vegan is on the cards for me. I think that I may still accept food that people have made for me, meals that people have made for me, potentially. I haven't quite ironed out where I'm going to draw the line, but I know that when it's me choosing my meals, when it's me buying my food, I want to be doing that in a vegan way, because I want to do that in a way that is less cruel and more in line with my values and this knowledge that I have come to know. I want to read this book to help me along that journey. But you might say that me turning vegan is kind of a personal improvement thing, right? That's like an individual thing that I would be doing. And I would argue that it isn't, because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one on the planet trying to go vegan. If I were completely vegan, I definitely wouldn't be the only vegan. Veganism is an action that a whole community is doing together, right? But I do understand where that question comes from. Like, I understand that you may be thinking, well, going vegan isn't going to bring about the change that I want. And I don't think that's an argument not to go vegan. But I think a book where we can think about like, okay, so how do society's norms and morals change? How does that happen? Well, the book that I have in mind to think more about that is The Honour Code: How Moral Revolutions Happen by Kwame Appiah. This book touches upon changes of morals, of the society's morals over the last few centuries, including the oppression of women, the emancipation of slaves, the end of duelling in aristocratic England, foot binding in 19th century China. It talks about a lot of moral changes that have happened in society and how they came about. And I think that will be really illuminating in terms of, okay, this is how it's happened historically. How can we apply that to things that we're worried about in the present, to oppressed peoples of the present? And I've been looking to develop a theory of change to kind of guide me in my actions going forward. Like how does change happen in society? I don't have a clear idea of that in my head, and so I'm hoping that reading this book will guide me towards that theory of change. I just realised that there is an ambulance. Let's take a moment to appreciate the work that ambulance people do. I'm glad that we have some people that we can call in an emergency. Yes, I've been looking to develop a theory of change because it's something that I don't have. I don't know where to go. I don't know what actions to take because I don't know what is going to be effective. So I'm hoping that this book will help me understand more how change happens and therefore what will be the best action to take. Something that I predict will be in that book is protest. So the next book that I have on my New Year's TBR is Protest: Stories of Resistance, and this book has essays by multiple authors and is edited by Page. This looks at protests that have happened throughout history in Britain, which is where I'm from, including suffragettes and anti-Iraq war protests. Yeah, I think this is another one that is going to be a motivating read of getting involved, what happened in history, how effective was it? I'm really curious to learn more about that. This book has fictionalized accounts of what happened and then also a history, so I think it will be a nice blend of fiction and non-fiction, which I always love. Again, I'm hoping it will inspire my political action going forward. My next read is from another YouTuber who is inspiring me with his political activism. It's also a book that I'm hoping will help me understand our economic situation more, and that book is The Trading Game by Gary Stevenson, known for his YouTube channel, Gary's Economics. So if you didn't know, Gary Stevenson is an ex-trader. He used to make millions predicting our economic future. He has this really brilliant video, one of the first on his channel, if not the first, talking about how in COVID there was a massive transfer of wealth to the wealthiest. Since COVID, economic inequality is increasing, and unless we start to tax the wealthiest in our society, then we are heading towards a Dickensian society. So I really want to read his book. He's written a book about his time as a trader and about his journey to becoming a political activist. Because I'm such a fan of the work that he's doing on his channel, I think it's going to be another inspiring read for me. And I'd like to be able to talk more about why it's so important for us to tax the wealthiest in our society, to be able to talk about why the idea that if we tax billionaires and multimillionaires that they'll leave the country and we won't be able to survive. On his channel he talks about how he, because he's arguing for a tax on assets, if you're taxing assets, you can't take assets that are in your country somewhere else. The whole point is that they are here. So if you have property in the UK, for example, if you're taxed on that property, then it doesn't matter where you are, you're being taxed on that property. Is my understanding of it, but I would love to have a better understanding of it. And so yeah, I would like to read more to be able to advocate better for wealth taxes. And finally, perhaps my most controversial one on this list, I would like to get around to reading this year The Righteous Mind: Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion by Jonathon Haidt. I think this is a controversial author, but I do find myself talking to people who have very different political opinions to mine. And I would like to panic less in those conversations. I would like to be able to keep calm and be able to understand better where the other person is coming from, and find common ground if there is any common ground to be had. Yeah, and not completely shut down. I think I'm definitely guilty of living in my social bubble, and sometimes that is necessary just to keep mentally well. But I think I'm at a point now where I can engage more in conversations, in difficult conversations, and try to establish more consensus. It's an open loop, an open question in my mind whether this book will help me do that, but I think it's a start. So Jonathon Haidt will talk about the differences in values between people on the right and the left. He talks about the history of morality and why different people have different ideas on morality. From what I can see, he's very opinionated about which parts we should agree with. I think it will be interesting. I think I very well may not like the book, but I still want to read it. I still want to see if there's anything that I can get out of it. I'm hoping that it will help me better understand the outlook of others and see if I can change the way that I have these conversations, and see if I can find these conversations any more useful, hopeful, rather than going around in circles. Yeah, I want to know if I can push the narrative forward, or I want to see if it's something that I can change my mentality around, the way that I could shut down and just don't want to engage. So yeah, we'll see how I go. We'll see how I go with that one. So that's my list. What do you think? Have you read any of these books? Are there any books that you are going to read this year for a kind of New Year's resolution reason, to be more politically engaged or politically active? Do you engage in any forms of activism? Do you have any recommendations for me? Anything that you found really useful in how you're thinking about these topics? I would love to know it all down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was a hopeful video and not just a downer of a video, but yeah, let me know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Maybe you've forgotten, maybe it just skipped your mind. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.